Hey everybody, Sal Capaccio here, WGR Sports Radio 550, Bill's sideline reporter, inviting you to do what I do every Wednesday and Friday night. That's check out 30 Minutes Live with CDP, coming at you from Ontario, right on your Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube channels. You can check it out every Wednesday and Friday night, just like I do. 30 Minutes Live with CDP.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to a Live with CDP edition on this Tuesday, November 16th. Guys, I might have to reschedule my podcast with Mike Farwell. There were some technical difficulties with StreamYard, so I'm about 9 minutes late, and I'm not sure if Mike can even get on here or not. But anyways, guys, this happens in podcasts, radio, TV, technical difficulties, so I am live now. I'm just not sure if I'll be able to bring Mike Farwell, my guest, on. So if you guys can just, while we're waiting, if I can try to get Mike on, cross their fingers, I'll just play a little clip of the Kitchener Rangers win over Saginaw the other day. The Kitchener Rangers, Mike Farwell is their play-by-play announcer for the OHL's Kitchener's Rangers. So one sec, I'm just going to play a clip here and see if we can bring Mike on. If not, we'll have to reschedule. I guess the clip's not working either. So anyways, guys, it's just been one of those days. We'll just see if we can try it again. I think we got it going now. 1 second. Okay, now we've got it going. Now we've got it going.
Vlad, left wing Pineli. Shot pass, great save on McDonald by Lennox and cleared. And here's a break. T-Bone Codd is in on a 2-on-none with Nick Wong. Codd scores! And that's his second shorty. In from the blue line. Near left corner to the point. Jackeye a bomb and he scores! Rocket shot by Arbor Jackeye at 10:56 of the second period. But I'm going to go out on a limb and say that's probably the hardest shot we'll see this season.
Well, if it's not, I don't know who's going to shoot it harder.
That was, wow. Rakoff trying to draw a penalty, none coming as Nick Wong was erased along the boards inside the Spirit zone. LeBlanc has room, right circle, scores! Jacob LeBlanc had all day to tee it up from the right side and snapped it past the right pad of Lennox to put Kitchener in the lead. It's 2-1. First OHL goal for Jacob LeBlanc, and it was a pretty one.
Anyways, guys, that clip was courtesy of the Kitchener Rangers YouTube channel. The Kitchener came off 2 wins this weekend. Saturday night in Flint and Sunday night in Saginaw. So the Kitchener Rangers are now 8-7-1. Guys, we're going to wait a couple more minutes for Mike. If Mike can't get on, we'll have to reschedule the podcast. Like I said, guys, I was about 9 minutes late today getting on here. Like I said, things do happen in radio, TV, and even with podcasts. And StreamYard, I've had for a year and a half, has been pretty good. So we'll cross our fingers that Mike can get on here and that. So while we're waiting for Mike, if he can come on, I want to just put on some stuff here anyways. Let's see some hockey news. General manager and head coach yesterday, George Burnett of the Guelph Storm, announced Monday the Storm have acquired an overage defenseman, Cameron Saprika, from the Sarnia Sting. In exchange for a 9th-round pick. Saprika will be the Storm's first overage player on the team, and he'll bring leadership to their defense corps. So, like I said, I think that was a really good pickup by Burnett yesterday, getting Saprika from the Sarnia Sting. And speaking of the Storm, guys, the Guelph Storm this week have 2 home games at the Sleeman Center. Friday, November 19th at 7:30 against the Owen Sound Attack, Rogers TV and CJOY 1460. And then Saturday, November 20th, the game I'll be working camera for Rogers TV at 4 o'clock against the Sarnia Sting. Both games are on Rogers TV and CJOY 1460 AM as well. So I'm looking forward to it. The Storm are off to a 9-6-1 start. And one of their key players is the Anaheim Ducks draft pick, Sasha Pastovic. I can't pronounce his name. Pastanoff. I guess he has 15 goals, 12 assists, 27 points for the Storm so far. So just a matter of getting his last name pronounced right. So anyways, I'm looking forward to these games this weekend as well. And like I said, the Kitchener Rangers are now 8-7-1. Day after they lost their 4-2 game to Owen Sound Friday, they took both games in the States on Saturday and Sunday in Flint and Saginaw. And the Kitchener Rangers this week are home Friday night to take on, I believe, the Saginaw Spirit at the Kitchener Auditorium. And then Saturday, they take on the London Knights in London at 4 o'clock. And then Sunday at 2 o'clock at the Odd against the London Knights. So they're going to have a busy weekend with 3 games in 3 days against Saginaw and 2 London Knight games as well. Anyways, guys, also just like we'll talk a little more sports. I'm just going to see if I can get Mike to come on or not. We'll cross our fingers it works, but if it doesn't, we'll have to reschedule. And let's see some other OHL news. OHL's best face-off team, the London Knights, right now are 53.71. Guelph Storm, number 2 for face-off wins, 52.86%. Number 3, the Mississauga Steelheads at 52.82%. Number 4, Bulldogs at 52.37%. The Flint Firebirds, 52%. Spirit Hockey, 52% as well. So I got that off Twitter yesterday. So the Guelph Storm. Oh, wait, I think we got Mike. I got 1 second, guys. I'm going to see if I can bring Mike Farwell on here. I apologize again to Mike and everybody for being late on here. And like I said, things do happen in radio and TV and that. So just 1 second, guys. And I'm going to bring on the voice of the Kitchener Rangers and the host of the Mike Farwell Show as well. Just 1 second. Hey, Mike, how you doing, buddy?
Hey, I'm good, Chris. How are you?
Good. I apologize. This is the first time I've ever had an issue with StreamYard in the year and a half I've used it.
Hey, no worries at all. These things happen, like you were just saying.
Definitely, and I've had to learn to ad-lib a little bit as well sometimes, like I said.
That's all part of the process, isn't it?
Okay. Anyways, I really appreciate your patience and for coming on. So I'll try to get to some questions for you. Are you still okay with even 15 minutes or time-wise?
Yeah, man, whatever you need. Let's just have some fun here.
Okay. First question I wanted to ask you, and I'll put your Twitter graphic on here too. People can follow you on at Farwell /OHL and at City News Kitchener, I guess.
Perfect place to find me.
Okay, no problem. First question I wanted to ask you, Mike. Thoughts on the return of the OHL after a long shutdown due to the pandemic?
Yeah, it's been interesting. I would have thought, and if I use the team that I broadcast for in the city and the rink in Kitchener at the Memorial Auditorium, our first week was still 50% capacity allowed, and we maxed out at like 3,800, 3,900 fans. And then as of the next week, we were allowed to go to 100% capacity, and we haven't reached it yet. We just started creeping over 5,000, which is a pretty good number. But pre-pandemic, the crowds were usually high 5,000s, low to mid 6,000s for a regular season game. So attendance looks like it's still down, a little bit soft, not only in Kitchener, but around the league. I would have thought maybe, especially with the vaccine policies in place, that things would have been would have picked up more quickly, because I thought that people were, would have been anxious to get back out and do some things. So I worry a little bit about that. I worry about the economics of the hockey clubs if they're not drawing enough fans. I worry about the economy generally if people are still reluctant to go out and do things, even in buildings where there are vaccine policies. And I worry a tiny bit about the league itself, because I think back on 19, 20 months away from the game, and maybe people found some other things to do. So I think it's going to take a little bit for the Ontario Hockey League itself to bounce back to pre-pandemic levels. And I hope that it can, because I hope people weren't too distracted by other things.
I totally agree, Mike. And doing the Storm games for Rogers TV, a lot of the Storm home games so far this year have been 2,800 or even less. And before the pre-demic, they were averaging over 4,000. And their last game I was at, they finally had a crowd over 3,600. So what you just said there makes sense. I think it's going to take a little more time to get back to the pre-COVID attendance around the league.
For sure.
So, Okay, and I'm just so glad the OHL is back because, like I said, we both love the game and love being around the players and the fans and stuff too.
Definitely do.
Okay. Second question I wanted to ask you is, what were your thoughts on the Rangers draft picks and so far this season into the lineup?
Yeah, it's been again pretty hard to tell. You know, Carson Rakoff and Andrew LeBlanc are the most recent number ones. So like first rounders. So those are the two guys that, and Andrew LeBlanc would have had a full season under his belt and technically be playing his sophomore season this year. Rakoff, of course, would have been this year's first year class. So it's really hard to tell. I'm still waiting, frankly, for these guys to step up and show their first round status. But I think it just goes to show what happens when you're away from the game for as long as these guys were. Even Rakoff last year during the pandemic wouldn't have been getting, regular ice time as a 15-year-old and getting ready to come into this league. So lots of variables at play. And in Kitchener specifically, I'm kind of waiting for these guys to step into their first round potential.
Well, and the Rangers did get off to a really good start, 5-0, but since then, I think they're 3-7 in their last 10 games. Injury's been a little bit of a factor too on the defensive core.
Yeah, the injury, singular, to Simon Motu is a factor, but the biggest factor is what you'd call the X factor. And we say that deliberately because Arbor Jacki, even though the name sounds like it starts with a J, his last name actually starts with an X. It's a very odd spelling, but he is the X factor on defense for the Kitchener Rangers. And he was assessed a 5-game suspension, which, make no mistake, he deserved the suspension, but his absence from the lineup was a huge hole. And just to put into perspective how much he means to the team, he comes back from that 5-game suspension and the Rangers win back-to-back games, and he was on the ice for every single goal that they scored. So I think that just goes to tell you how important he is to the team. So yes, the injury to Simon Motu was a blow, but the 5-game suspension to Arbor Jacki was hands down, in my opinion, the biggest blow.
Well, on the weekend, obviously, you guys lost Owen Sound Friday night, but then to win those games back to back in Flint and Saginaw, that is going to be a huge confidence builder for this team going forward.
Yeah, and the confidence is something they're going to need coming into this weekend because they get Saginaw again on Friday night, but then it's back to back with the mighty, mighty London Knights on Saturday and Sunday. Divisional opponent, top team in the Western Conference, the team that everybody else loves to hate. Those are big games for the Rangers.
Yeah. Well, one of their guys I've had on my podcast twice, Mike Stubbs, him and Jim Van Horn. So I told them as long as they're not playing the Guelph Storm, I wish them all the success in the world. But as well as I think they're playing, I don't think this is like the 2005 London Knights where nobody could touch them. I think depends on what the Greyhounds do and some of the other teams do. I think it could be up for grabs in the Western Conference.
Yeah, and I'd probably say that around the league, even in the Eastern Conference. You look at the good starts for Sudbury and North Bay, for example, and Hamilton's having a great start to the season. Does that last? Who knows at this point because it's such a crapshoot. There's no question that this London Knights team isn't the 2005 London Knights team, but this is an awfully good hockey club. Again, they've got great goaltending, they've got a high-powered offense, so it's always interesting when they're involved. And you mentioned Mike Stubbs' name. Mike Stubbs and Jim Van Horn are two of my absolute favorites in this league. I'd even throw in Ryan Payette, who writes for the London Free Press. I joke all the time that you go to London and the fans are looking forward to the rivalry, and I can't have any rivalry in the media room there. Those are some of the best guys going, not to mention Pistol Pete James, the dean of sports in the city of London, is just a fantastic human. So I love every minute of being there, and I'm having laughs and shaking hands before the teams go out on the ice and beat each other up.
Definitely. And like I said, you guys are going to see a lot more of them. And same with Guelph in London. I know the Knights make their first appearance in the Guelph on November 26th on a Friday. And I'm going to be making sure I'm doing camera work for Rogers that night as well. And hopefully I'll be able to say hi to Mike and Jim in the press box as well.
Yeah, they're good guys.
Definitely. I was going to ask you, Mike, you've been around the OHL a long time as well. I've followed it for 40 years since the Gulf Platers came in 82, 83. And the speed of the game is I find it's even faster now than before pre-COVID. I don't know. What's your assessment on the speed of the game?
Yeah, maybe we slowed down a little bit in the year off, Chris. I don't know, but it's definitely a fast game. It's funny you bring that up because I remember pre-pandemic, I guess we were on a road trip and I had some time to kill in the afternoon before the game. So I'm in the hotel room just chilling out, and I found an NHL Classic game on TV, and I started watching for a little bit. And the first thing that jumped out at me was how slow the game looked. Like these guys looked like they were skating in 150-pound skates. That's how slow they looked on the ice, and just spoke to me about how much quicker the game has gotten. And I got onto the bus to go to the game, and I mentioned it to one of the coaches, and he'd been watching the same game, the same classic game, and he had the exact same thought. So is the game faster now than it was pre-pandemic? I can't say for sure. I think we're all kind of getting used to the speed again, but there is zero doubt that this game is played at a much faster pace than it was 20, 30, and 40 years ago.
I was gonna say, because as being a camera operator, it's like I really have to follow that puck, and it's just amazing. Like I said, these young kids, how fast they are. But overall, I think the play has been really good so far across the league.
Yeah, we've had the opportunity to see some really talented players, and that's what I love about this league. I've said it since day one, and I try to encourage as many people as I can to follow junior hockey and watch these kids who are in this league today and could be in the National Hockey League tomorrow. And it's a terrific brand of hockey. It's terrific value for your money, and you're seeing incredible talent on the ice most nights.
Definitely. And before I get to my next question, I was going to say I need to go to a game in Kitchener. I haven't been to one there since March 1983 when the Memorial Cup champion Rangers back then beat Guelph 13-1, and I was the lone Guelph player fan in the stands that day.
Okay. Yes, you haven't been there in 40 years, Chris.
1983, March
Let's go.
1983.
Let's go. I will buy you your ticket. Get your behind back to the odd, buddy. Come on.
Yes, and I remember that game where Wendell Young was in net for the Rangers. Scott Mosley was in for the Platers. Kitchener was up like 6-0 in the first period, and then Kirk Muller. I have a memory like anything. Kirk Muller scored a goal, and I was the only one in the building standing up, and everyone was looking at me. It was like, and that was the expansion year for the Platers, and the Rangers were just coming off a Memorial Cup win, and it was just, yeah, like I said, I need to come back to the odd. It's been a while.
Yes, you do. You definitely do.
Definitely. Okay, I want to get to the next question, Mike. Overall, how did the training camp preseason go for the Rangers in your assessment of the team?
Yeah, I think it went pretty well considering the number of bodies they had to kind of sort through to get ready for the regular season. It was different with all of the COVID protocols. It's usually a pretty big deal in Kitchener. They do a fan fest and barbecue and allow fans into that first preseason game, and they raise some money for charity. It's really a great celebration. And then the last couple of years, they had that preseason showcase where a bunch of teams came to the odd and set up in Kitchener as kind of home base, and we got to see like 4 games over a weekend. That sort of thing was pretty cool. So that was obviously scaled back due to COVID, but the scouts and the coaches and the management of the hockey club had their opportunities to watch these players in more game-like conditions, make the decisions they needed to make. And I think it carried over into the regular season the way things started. You mentioned that 5-0 start. It's been a struggle for Kitchener since then, but they seem to, with the return of Arbor Jacki, be finding their way again in the league.
Definitely, and the Guelph Storm got off to a slow start, and now they're 9-6-1. But I think it's due to the draft pick from the Anaheim Ducks, Sasha Pastranoff. I don't know if that's how I pronounce the name, but he's been outstanding for the Storm so far.
Pastajov has been a guy that I have heard talked about everywhere I go. So there is some conversation about him having the best shot uh, this Guelph Storm team has ever seen in the franchise history. And this is a team that had Isaac Ratcliffe, among others, playing for it at one time or another. And there's no doubt that this kid is one of the best in the entire league right now.
Definitely. Yeah, I was going to ask you also. The first female linesman took place Friday night in Kitchener. Kristen Welsh. Overall, how did you, as a longtime broadcaster, how did you feel she did in her first OHL game?
Well, I think the best thing I could say about that, Chris, is I didn't notice her out there. She was just another person wearing a black and white striped jersey. But I will say that the Owen Sound Attack and Kitchener Rangers made her earn her money that night, along with Kevin Hastings, who was the other linesman, and the referees who were on the ice as well, because that was a chippy game. So Kirsten Welsh found herself in the midst of a whole bunch of scrums, separating the players, doing the hardest work I think that a lines person has to do. It's not all just about calling offsides and dropping pucks for faceoffs. I thought she was terrific. I think the story is terrific. I love that young girls who play the game and who love the game of hockey can now look at somebody like Kirsten and say, I can be like that. I can be like Kirsten. And that to me is the best part about all of this. I can't wait to see more women in the game.
That would be great. And like you said, you're seeing them now in the NFL as referees or not linesmen. You're seeing them in other sports like in the NFL and the NBA. Major League Baseball, I don't think there's anybody up in the major leagues yet for that.
Well, if baseball ever decides to grow up, maybe they'll put some female umpires in there too.
Definitely, definitely. Okay. I just had to ask you about that because, like I said, that was the first ever time in the regular season, and it happened in a great hockey city in Kitchener.
Yeah, I loved that Kitchener got to be a part of that history. I thought about it on the day of, and I realized that the Memorial Auditorium is 70 years old. It's seen some tremendous hockey over the years, some tremendous events. It's got a lot of great history. We talk all the time about the ghosts of the Kitchener Memorial Auditorium, all those banners in the rafters. But after all those years and all those events and all those great happenings, they'd never seen a female official on the ice, and it got to see that last Friday too. Very cool.
That's awesome. I just wanted to ask you about that. So, next question I want to ask you: still okay for a few more minutes, Mike?
Sure.
Okay, because like I said again, I apologize for the delay with StreamYard, but it happens. So, this question I wanted to ask you: thoughts on the GM head coach Mike McKenzie so far, and the coaching staff of Dennis Weidman, Brendan Menard, and goaltending coach Jordan DeCourt. Overall, how do you feel they've done so far with this team?
Yeah, it's hard to say anything negative about the time that Mike McKenzie has spent behind the bench with the Kitchener Rangers. When he took over back in 2019, he went 33 6 and 2, if I've got those numbers correct, something like that over the remainder of the season. And that season ended in Guelph. You'll probably remember it with a game against the Storm that the Kitchener Rangers won, and then COVID hit. But he was on such an incredible run. And then you look at the beginning of this season, and I know the Rangers had their struggles, losers of 7 of 8 with those injuries and those suspensions we talked about already. But I don't know how you say anything negative about his time, Mike McKenzie's time as the head coach of this hockey club. And it hasn't even been a full 68 games. I think that's when you really start taking a measure of a coach, but he's surrounded himself with good people, in Weidman, in Brandon Murley, who's there, Brennan Menard from up on the Lakehead in Thunder Bay, and Jordan DeCourt, the former Kitchener Rangers goaltender. So he's got a good crew around him, and he's got a really sharp mind for hockey.
And I was going to say, I had a guest on about 2 weeks ago, Evan McGrath, part of the Memorial Cup champion team. And I was going to say, has he shown any interest in getting involved with coaching or assisting maybe the Kitchener Rangers as well?
It's funny you bring up Evan's name because Chris Pope, my broadcast partner, and I were just talking about Evan the other day. It was just a kind of random conversation about a time that Evan had been on one of our broadcasts of Rangers hockey on City News 570. He didn't indicate then, and I don't know. I haven't talked to him in quite some time. I don't know if he's got interest in being a coach.
Okay, because I had him on my podcast, and I know he's doing well as a financial advisor and stuff like that, and he's quite content retiring from pro hockey. But he was a really good guy to have on my podcast, and like I said, hopefully I can have him back on again. And he was a key member of that Memorial Cup team in 03 with Rangers.
Absolutely, he was.
That's hard to believe. I was just thinking about it, Mike. It's now going on 18 years since they won that Memorial Cup. Where's the time gone?
Well, tell the fans that, Chris, because they're getting pretty restless in Kitchener for another Memorial Cup championship.
Well, Guelph too. Guelph hasn't won since 1986, and that was the Guelph Platers, and they weren't even expected to win. That was kind of a Cinderella team that year.
Those are the fun ones, but what you
Yes.
hope to have is some of the expected ones around those surprising ones, and that just hasn't happened in Kitchener.
Definitely. Well, like I said, we'll see what happens this year. Just a couple more quick questions for you, Mike. This one I wanted to ask: thoughts on the Rangers naming forward Francesco Pineli as captain?
I like it. It's been a long time since the Kitchener Rangers have named an 18-year-old kid captain, so you know that. I mean, I'd be stunned if Francesco Pinelli doesn't play in this league again next year. So they've got stability, obviously, in the captain's position. I think it's a good responsibility to put on a young man because he's got a pretty young team around him, and now he can sort of set the tone and create the culture that this team wants to have over the next couple of seasons under Francesco's leadership. So I like the move a lot. This guy's a second rounder to the Los Angeles Kings of the National Hockey League. He's got a lot to prove and a lot to live up to because of that. And I think the C fits him extremely well.
Now, how does this process work with the Rangers? I know with the London Knights, Mike Stubbs was saying the players have a big hand in selecting the captain. Is that the same with the Kitchener Rangers, or is it more of the coach and general manager that has a say in that?
That's a great question. I think I'm not positive, but I think it's the coaching staff that makes the decision. I'm not sure there's any consultation with the players. I could be wrong though. I'm not sure.
Okay, I just wanted to ask you on that. And the next question I want to get to, Mike, is who have been some surprises in your opinion for Kitchener so far in the part of the OHL season so far?
I would say Joseph Serpa comes to mind. I know he's a 19-year-old kid and should be performing at a pretty high level, but he was leading the team in scoring for most of the earlier part of the season. You would not have expected that. Mike Petizian with 9 goals already. I expected him to be a leader offensively because obviously he's in his overage year, but I'm not quite sure I expected him to be on this pace. He's going to shatter his previous career highs at the pace that he's currently going. So I'd put him in that category. I've really liked Matt Andonovski as a young defenseman. He's had struggles at times for sure because he was put into positions where he was up against different players and eating up a lot of minutes on the blue line when the injuries and the suspensions were in place. But I think he's done well for himself. He's been pretty pleasant. And I'd say both goaltenders, Pavel Chayan and Jackson Parsons, have been lights out terrific, to be quite honest with you. And I guess you'd say, based on their pedigree, it might have been expected, but they've been, to my eyes anyway, even better than expected.
Oh, and like I said, even if you don't have an offensive team, if you have solid goaltending, you'll be in every single game in this league,
Yeah,
especially.
there's no question about it. Goaltending is the absolute magic ingredient for success in this league.
Definitely. And that gets to my next question, Mike. I'm not sure what Kitchener's status right now with overage players, but do you think the Rangers could add an overage player or players before the trade deadline?
Yeah, the Rangers are full in their overage spots right
Okay.
now. And looking ahead, I'm not sure how much tinkering Mike McKenzie is going to do with the lineup this season. He's historically been a guy that likes to get deals done in the off season, and obviously the off season was a bit topsy turvy the last 2 off seasons. So jury is still out on that one.
Okay. I had to ask that one. And the next question I wanted to ask you, I got two more and that's it. Where do you predict the Rangers to possibly finish the 2022 OHL season?
Kind of coming into this season, Chris, I saw them as a middle of the pack team. They weren't going to, set the league on fire, but they also weren't going to be the sisters of the poor and, be the cellar dwellers by any stretch. The bit of a, rough ride over the past 10 games obviously makes you second guess some things, but it's still so early. There's lots of hockey still to be played, more than 50 games. So as I look around this league, I still see the Rangers as probably challenging for one of the top 4 spots in the conference and home ice in the first round of the playoffs. I would be shocked, quite frankly, if they finish lower than 6th.
Okay. And this leads to my next question, Mike. I'm just trying to wrap it up for you because you were nice enough to come on today, and I really appreciate it again. Besides the London Knights, obviously, who are some other OHL teams to possibly watch out for in the West and the Eastern Conference?
Well, I want to preface this first comment by saying I said it at the beginning of the year, even before it started. Sault Ste. Marie, that you can never sleep on the Sioux Greyhounds. I don't know how Kyle Raftis does it or what he does, but he always tends to put a pretty high tempo, entertaining product on the ice. And the Sioux Greyhounds don't take big steps back when it's their turn to be sort of in rebuild mode. Because remember, Sioux was thinking of hosting the Memorial Cup last year, which means that would have been their year to be built up and going for it. And here they are lighting it up offensively this year. So it's been pretty impressive. I say the Sioux is definitely a team to watch. I'm still really curious about Windsor in the West. They should be going better than they are. And I'm not quite sure what's going on there, but there's too much talent to stay, in the bottom half of the conference. So I would expect to see something happen in and around the Windsor Spitfires. That's another team I would watch in the West. And hey, the Guelph Storm, we already talked about Sasha Pastajov, but when you have one of the best players in the entire league on your team, how can you not be in the mix every single time you take to the ice? So I think that the Storm, and I mentioned Kyle Raftis up in Sault Ste. Marie. George Burnett's 30 plus years in this game, and look at what he's still getting out of guys. He's adapting as a coach. He's shrewd as a manager, and I'm pretty impressed with this Guelph Storm team. So Sioux, Windsor, Guelph in the West, and over in the East, I kind of already touched on North Bay and Sudbury, who are surprising at starting the season as far as I'm concerned. I think it'll be interesting to see how things shake out as the season goes on. And by the time we've played 68 games, Barrie in the East is a team much like Windsor in the West, from my perspective. And that is a team that's full enough of talent that it should be at or near the top by the time all things are said and done. And I really like the Hamilton Bulldogs this year. They've got enough experience. They're getting decent goaltending. And I'm a big fan of their head coach, Jay McKee. So I think they might be interesting in the East this year too.
I agree with what you just said there, Mike. The only concern with Sioux and Guelph, obviously they can put the puck in the net and they're offensively great, but I find they're still going to have to work on their defense because I guess the Greyhounds and the Storm have given up quite a lot of goals, and I think George Burnett and the Greyhounds will have to play a little bit better defensively closer to the playoff time as well.
Sure, and George knows how to, clamp down and play defensive if he needs to.
And adding that defenseman yesterday from Sarnia was a good pickup as well. The overage defenseman they got, Cameron Suprika, I believe.
That's correct. Yep.
Definitely. Okay, I just two quick questions and I'll wrap it up for you. And this one I had to ask you, Mike, and I should go before if they do decide to build a new arena. Yes or no, will the city of Kitchener eventually replace the Odd with a new arena within the next, let's say, the next 5 years? And can you also quickly just tell my audience about your podcast, OHL Stories with Chris Pope, and where they can find it on social media?
As far as the city of Kitchener and the Kitchener Memorial Auditorium go, the answer is absolutely yes. In 5 years, I doubt it. I'm thinking probably closer to 15 to 20 years, but yes, they will. The region of Waterloo is home to more than 600,000 people. It's one of the fastest growing areas in all of Canada. Of course, they need a larger sports and entertainment venue to attract bigger concerts, bigger events, etc., and to serve a community of this size. And it needs to be updated. It needs to be more modern. So there's no doubt in my mind that there will be a new hockey arena at some point. I just can't tell you what that point would be. Like I said, I'm thinking maybe 15 years at the earliest, probably closer to 20. But hey, if somebody has the right idea at the right time with the right amount of money, it might happen faster. Who knows? But I definitely think it'll happen.
Do you think they would keep it in where it is right now, or would they move it closer to downtown? Because it seems like a lot of arenas are going downtown.
Yeah, that's another $1 million question. I would argue, as a Kitchener resident, that the arena where it is right now is basically downtown. It's not right in the heart of downtown on King Street or Queen Street or anything like that, but it's pretty darn close. And where you've got it right now with access to the expressway, there's a bus stop literally across the street from the front doors. I mean, you're a few blocks walk from the light rail transit. You get off a train and walk up to the Odd. So many perks about where it is currently sitting. But yeah, if they want to make it some sort of downtown revitalization project, then sure, it might move. I would like it to stay exactly where it is. I think they've got ample room for it and all of the advantages I just mentioned, but I guess that remains to be seen. The one thing I want to make sure happens, I really hope they save the facade somehow, that memorial piece that reminds us of why it was built in 1951, and that was as a tribute to the World War II veterans. And I think that's a really important facade. It's got a heritage and historic look to it, and I think it should stay. So I hope that when the new arena comes along, they find a way to salvage that facade and make it a part of whatever it is they build.
Okay, definitely. And where can my audience again find your podcast with Chris Pope and you on social media as well?
Yeah, the podcast is called OHL Stories, and it is exactly that. It's a collection of stories from the Ontario Hockey League. We spend at least a half an hour, usually 45 minutes to an hour each week, with a former player, an executive, a broadcaster, a writer, whatever the case may be, and we just get them to tell stories. We hear their stories about covering the game or playing in the game or being a part of the game somehow. It's been a ton of fun. You can find it wherever you get your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, you name it, you'll find it. We have an OHL Stories YouTube page, which has the podcasts on video and a whole bunch of other stuff that we like to do. And you'll find it on Instagram and Facebook as well, OHL Stories.
Definitely. And I've already subscribed to your YouTube channel, and I look forward to watching your latest episode as well.
Great stuff. Appreciate that. Thank you.
No problem. And people can follow you on Twitter at Farwell_OHL and at City News Kitchener if they wish to tweet the station as well.
You got it.
Okay, Mike, again, I apologize for the technical difficulties, but thank you for being patient and for coming on and talking a little Kitchener Rangers hockey. And I'll definitely have to go to a Rangers game in Kitchener soon.
You make sure you do. I told you, I'll buy the damn ticket.
Definitely, I will contact you. So I'm going to let you go, Mike, but I hope you have a great rest of the week, and good luck with the Rangers this weekend with the 3 games and 3 nights. And one quick question before I let you go. You guys are doing the road games, but you guys, I don't believe are doing the U.S. trips yet.
That's right. We're not yet approved for travel into the United States from our broadcast company, so hopefully that happens soon.
Okay. Anyways, Mike, thank you again for coming on live with CDP, and we'll be in touch with you on social media.
Thanks, Chris. A lot of fun. Thanks for having me on the show.
Thanks, Mike. Take care.
You too.
Anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed my podcast today with Mike Farwell. You can catch his radio show daily, Monday to Friday on 570 News or 570 City News in Kitchener as well. And he's one of the best play-by-play guys in the OHL as well. So anyways, guys, you can also check out, like I said, the Kitchener Rangers website, kitchenerrangers.com. And also OHL Stories podcast. You can listen to it on audio, like my podcast, and also Chris and Mike have their own YouTube channel for their OHL Stories as well, and they get great guests. And I'm now subscribing to their podcast channel as well. And again, you can follow Mike Farwell on Twitter at Farwell_OHL, and also at City News Kitchener as well. Anyways, guys, just to let you know, Live with CDP podcast, the audio version is downloaded onto Google Podcasts, Anchor FM, Apple Podcasts, Breaker, Pocket Casts, Radio Public, Spotify, Castbox, and LinkedIn. And I want to say thank you to everybody who watched this live on YouTube, my Facebook page, and at Twitter at Christy Pame. Thank you so much. And also, guys, you can follow me on TikTok at Live with CDP. That's at Live with CDP on TikTok. I do lots of content posting there for the podcast as well. And also, guys, Live with CDP merchandise. Podcast shirts are 15, coffee mugs are 15, and my new podcast hats are 18. Shipping's extra if you're out of Guelph and country as well. Anyways, like I said, guys, I really appreciate Mike coming on. And also just got some other news here I want to talk to you guys about. And like I said, again, the Guelph Storm, George Burnett, their coach and general manager yesterday, announced the Storm have acquired overage defenseman Cameron Saprika from the Sarnia Sting for a 9th round draft pick. This will be the first overage player on the Storm this year, and Cameron will be a good addition to the defense core as well. And also, guys, the Guelph Storm this week have 2 home games at Sleeman Center. Friday night, November 19th at 7:30 against the Owen Sound Attack. And then Saturday, November 20th, which I'll be doing as a camera operator for Rogers, 4 p.m. face-off against the Sarnia Sting. Both games are on Rogers TV and also on CJOY 1460 with Larry Malott, who does a great job of the Storm games as well. And before I wrap this up, guys, just a little more sports news. The Detroit Tigers yesterday reached an agreement with starting pitcher Eduardo Rodriguez from the Boston Red Sox, 5 years, $77 million. He will help strengthen the Tigers' rotation for next year. I think Eduardo Rodriguez, or Erod, they call him, will be a number 4 starter. I believe a 3 or a 4 starter for the Tigers. So we'll see what happens there. And also, guys, as you know, the Eagles are coming off an impressive 30-13 road win at Denver. Again, 214 yards rushing. The Birds have led the NFL in rushing yards the past 4 weeks, the last month, with 761 yards in total. And the Eagles are home this Sunday, November 21st, at 1 o'clock kickoff against the New Orleans Saints. Eagles are 0-4 at the Link, and they're looking for their first home win, and hopefully they can get it against Sean Payton and the New Orleans Saints. The Eagles are 4-6, so if they can win that game, they'll be 5-6, and maybe even look at a wild card position, but we'll see what happens there. But I'll tell you this, the last 3 weeks, the Eagles seem to have an identity on offense now. The offense line is protecting Hurts, and they're also creating lanes for Boston Scott and Jordan Howard to run. And having Jordan Howard and Boston Scott running in the backfield has been great, because now the Eagles have a little more balance on offense. Before, it was relying too much on Hurts, and Hurts is still a young quarterback, and he is developing quite nicely, and I think he will be the Eagles quarterback for the future going into 2022 and beyond. And hopefully the Eagles get Miles Sanders back as well. But it's nice to see some kind of identity and consistency on the offense, and we'll just see what happens this Sunday against the New Orleans Saints as well. Anyways, guys, before I go, just want to let you know my next Live with CDP podcast. I'm a busy man this week. Tomorrow night, Wednesday, November 17th at 7 o'clock Eastern, 4 on the West Coast. My guest for the 3rd time, Pat Gregor from Coolbat, Canada, and the color analyst for the National Lacrosse League's Halifax Thunderbirds will come on and talk about the return of the National Lacrosse League, his involvement as a color analyst for the Halifax Thunderbirds, and a little bit about his job career with Coolbat Canada, and maybe talk a little Buffalo Bills football with Pat as well. He's a huge Buffalo Bills fan as well. So anyways, guys, like I said, I want to apologize to, again, Mike and everybody here watching for the technical difficulties today. It was about 8 minutes. It's something out of my hands with StreamYard, but overall, I'm quite happy with StreamYard as my online streaming provider for my podcast as well. So anyways, guys, I'm going to wrap this podcast up, but I just want to say, again, thanks to Mike Farwell for coming on. Please check out the OHL Stories podcast with him and Chris Pope, and also his normal radio station, 570 City News in Kitchener. The Mike Farwell Show is on Monday to Friday mornings as well. And Mike's one of the best in the business on radio and stuff. So anyways, guys, and the Red Wings tonight play at Dallas at 8:30. Wings are coming off a disappointing 5-3 loss to Columbus last night as well. And the Pistons lost to the Sacramento Kings, 125-109. But Cade Cunningham had a career-high 25 points for the Pistons. All right, guys, I'm going to wrap this up. I hope everyone has a great rest of the day and evening, and we'll talk to you guys tomorrow night, 7 o'clock, for another edition of Live with CDP podcast with my guest, Pat Gregor. Have a great day, guys.